What's up, passionate Pokemon players? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. This time we are going and we're doing our first kind of revamped deck of the since rotation. We're going back with the Venusaur EX deck that I made months and months ago, one of my first videos in fact, and we're revamping it post rotation. So we're going to go over each card in the deck, why it's included, the strategy, strengths, and weaknesses of the deck, and then finally we'll go over a couple other cards to consider swapping in or out. So let's go! The deck list is up on the left hand side, so let's get into it. Of course, the first one is Venusaur EX. So its ability, Tranquil Flower. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. So pretty fun there, right? And then Dangerous Toxawhip for 150. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now both confused and poisoned. So it's vile in many ways in that it's going to poison and confuse your opponent's Pokemon. It's only dealing 150, really 160 after the poison, but you're pretty much going to be able to get everything out there in a couple turns. Whereas with 340 HP, with a lot of the other items and tools we're going to be using in healing, this Venusaur can be very, very hard to kill. Alright, so let's get into the rest of the stuff here. Of course, we've got Bulbasaur, 70 HP. I chose this one. I think this one might be one of a couple options now only. Anyway, with rotation, Leech Seed is going to heal 20. In a pinch, you can use it. You don't really want this bad boy in the active, and really, like, if you get a Bulbasaur stuck in the active, you're probably, like, don't want to put energy on it. Right, and then we've got, I put two Ivysaurs out there just to kind of give me easier chances of evolutions and things like that. Unfortunately, the Pokemon Go one rotated out, which had a really good ability that for one energy let you pull two grass type Pokemon, I believe, or something like that. So now we're just kind of stuck with this one, which doesn't do a ton. It also has Leech Seed, which heals 20 for 2 energy, deals 10 more than the Bulbasaur, and then Vine Whip for 3 does 80, but this is another one, like, you do not want to get this one stuck in the active. Alright, now my last Pokemon here, after much experimentation and trial and error and a lot of failure, I settled on Joltik, which I think makes this deck viable in terms of doing what it wants to do. I, in the past, was using the Alolan Exeggutor EX to load up energy, but now with Lady being gone, it's really hard to get a bunch of energy into your hand in order to use the ability. So I went with Joltik here, which does kind of similar things, right? For it has 30 HP and then uses Jolting Charge. Search your deck for up to 2 basic grass and up to 2 basic lightning and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Then shuffle your deck. So this works with Venusaur. If we come back to him, we can see that it does have 1 colorless energy for its attack and then 2 grass. So as long as you put 2 grass and 1 electric, then we're good. So in an ideal state, we're going to probably load up one of our Bulbasaurs or its family with 3 of those energy from Joltik, and then another one with 1 of the lightning, another Bulbasaur, to get that second one ready to go. So that's kind of the whole strategy around this deck so far, just in a nutshell, is getting Joltik into active and then letting it load up your Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaurs. Okay, now let's get into the trainers. Of course, we've got Buddy-Buddy Poffin. I've got a healthy 4 of them in there. Bug Catching Set. This one's one I'm a little bit less sold on compared to, like, in the past, because number one, we may not want to get too many energies in our hand, but it does really help us pull those Bulbasaur and its evolution line into hand as well, and just having an energy to attach in general is good. Usually the grass energies we're not going to run out of for the most part. Earthen Vessel is another one in there too. It still works, so you want to be careful using it. Like, if once you know that, like, okay, I don't want my Joltik back in the active, that's when you start using the Earthens. But before that, unless it's like turn 1 and you have nothing and you need to get Joltik and energy to use, you don't really want to use this too much, because then Joltik, which can just pull 4 and attach, you may not have that many. Right, Night Stretcher, another tried and true classic in the deck. I'm going to go with 4 Night Stretchers because, of course, we want to bring back Pokemon and energies. Rare Candy. I went with 3 Rare Candies in this deck so that, of course, we're going to get our Venusaur evolved, as the whole deck revolves around it. Switch, I put 2 Switch cards in there. We want to be able to swap out. Our Venusaurs have 4 retreat cost. Even Bulbasaur as a basic has 2. So a lot of times that's going to be a strategy of your opponent, just trying to trap you in the active. And I don't like that. So I did 2, and we'll talk about why there's 2 in a second, because we do have other ways of swapping in and out. Ultra Ball, 3 Ultra Balls. Boss's Orders, 3 Boss's Orders. Iono, I put 4 Ionos in the deck because this is really our only draw engine, our only way of getting out of a bad hand, and of course it gets your opponent into a bad hand sometimes too, especially if you're behind on things. That can really help you out late game when your Venusaur's healing and they're trying to have trouble maybe getting a boss's orders to kind of finish the game out. Iono's nice. Now here's the reason I have 2 Switch, because I also have 2 Kieran. The original iteration of this deck played a similar line, and this is really cool. This acts as either a Switch or during this turn. Attacks used by your Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active EX or V. Obviously there's no more Vs. This one's really nice for just finishing things off. In 2 turns, our Venusaur can deal 320, but that's going to keep the Pokemon like Charizard, no, not Charizard EX because he's weak to it, but there's some of those 330 plus HP Pokemon that this one's going to help you just deal with. Rarely you're going to use it to do more. I mean, thinking about this, like we can hit for 190 and maybe take out some of those weaker HP EXs. So that's an option too, but I rarely find it. I think it really comes in handy at times to get that 30 extra damage though. Okay, then my A-Spec is going to be the Hero's Cape. When we've got such a bulky Venusaur out there, we really want to just give him more HP. If we could get him to 440, like, oh man, this bad boy's hard to knock out when you're healing for 60 damage a turn. And so then I went with 8 basic grass energies and 3 basic of the lightning. There's a part of me that maybe wants to remove one of the Night Stretchers and add 1 more of these. Honestly, I think that's maybe the way to go as I'm thinking about this now. But I don't know. I think obviously I'll keep this as is, because sometimes I do find myself like just not having energies for Joltik to use. Even though I'm usually only using Joltik in the beginning, but it's good. So you may consider adding 1 more, going up to 12 total energy and 3 Night Stretchers. Strategy, strengths, and weaknesses of the deck. The strategy is to get Joltik in the active at the beginning of the battle. Basically, what you want to do is, as he notes here, use Jolting Charge, load up your Bulbasaurs and its family on the bench. Bench Bulby, right? You want to bench at least 2 of them. Be careful with benching 3, at least at once, because you're only going to be able to load up really 1.5. So if your opponent just wants to go ahead and throw out the unenergied one, that can be an issue for you sometimes, where it just really slows you and them down. And then let him try, and what I mean by let him try is let him try to knock out this Venusaur, which by then is hopefully at some point you're going to get it up to 440 HP. You're going to be healing 60 damage, and then remember, once you hit them once, they're going to be confused, so they may just knock themselves out. So let him try to knock this bad boy out. All right, the strengths, for the most part, you can set up quick. Sometimes you can't, but when things go well, this is a really quick setup. Is if you go second, Joltik, hopefully you find yourself a Poffin, or at least get some Bulbasaurs in there. You just need 1 energy, and then you're loading up your Bulbasaurs with 4 energy, which in essence really thins out your deck. So then from there, hopefully you can get them evolved nice and quickly. It's very tanky, as I mentioned, between 340 and 440 HP, healing for 60 every turn. It's pretty crazy. And let's say that maybe you get that switch card and you have a second one loaded up, or a Kieran. Remember that the turn you get your second Venusaur EX inactive, it's usually going to have 0 HP taken from it. You can just use Tranquil Flower on your bench Venusaur now. Pretty cool, right? Alright, weaknesses though. Energy management can be an issue. Yes, we do have 11 energies total, but you need to be careful when this bad boy needs 3 energy already. Your Joltik needs 1. If you're not careful, then it's not going to work. And especially like if we have too many prized, then sometimes you get 2 of your lightnings prized, and then Joltik's kind of like you only 1. Occasionally you're going to get 2 or 3 of them right in hand, so that kind of sucks too, right? Getting hand locked too, because this deck has like 0 draw engine and really 0 ways of getting those Ionos into hand other than just drawing them. Sometimes you're going to get hand locked and things are going to go really painfully. Some other cards to consider here, of course, the other most hated card right now, aside from Joltik, and really the most hated, is Budu. You know, considering it's a grass type Pokemon, it would really make the deck synergize a little bit more, and then you just try to slow things down as you're evolving your Venusaur and just loading them up, rather than kind of just loading them from there. I think it's a little bit more risky to play slow and hope that we can get loaded up when your opponent may not even have stage 2 Pokemon. The items may not really affect them. I think what I mean is stage 2 Pokemon is not being able to use Rare Candy. I think I didn't go Budu for that reason. I think I would rather go fast than slow, especially with a deck like this where we can just get a big bulky guy out there quickly. Going slow too is going to let your opponent load up with maybe heavier hitters more slowly, and by the time you get your Venusaur out, maybe they're already loaded up as well. The other one, I really wanted to get this Alcremie EX in there, but I think it was important to get the Joltik, and from there I didn't have too much more room for things. I mean, you could consider maybe eliminating your Earthen Vessels and maybe going 2 and 2 with Milcery, I don't know how to say it, and Alcremie. Because what's great about this is once during your turn you could heal 30 from one of your Pokemon. So overall, if we did that, then now we can get 90 HP healed from our Venusaur. This one almost acts as the Radiant Sarina, which rotated out and really affects this deck as well, which healed 20 from everybody. Now this one only heals 1, but it does heal 10 more. The problem with this is a couple things, aside from just the fact that it's a stage 1 Pokemon, so you have to evolve it, but then it needs 2 retreat cost. So they're going to work on just trapping it in active, and then if it gets trapped out, then you have to load it up. It's probably just going to get KO'd, and that's 2 prize cards. 250 HP isn't the most for a stage 1 EX. It just was more trouble than it was worth, and I was just not doing well when I was including this one in there. So I ended up removing it. Now, the other one I would think about really is the Professor Turo scenario. This one is almost a comedic card, and I do like comedic cards, and just in this deck particularly, because it's going to take your opponent a lot of times maybe 3, unless they're fire deck. It's going to take them like 3 turns to KO this Venusaur, and if you get to the point where, okay, it's next turn it's going to get knocked out, guess what, just pull it back to hand. So that's a funny way of going. I think I don't necessarily like it because you discard all of the other cards. It can't stop you from getting a prize, but in my opinion, I think it might be better to just go ahead and do some more damage, maybe hit for the 150 plus with Dangerous Toxtwhip and go from there. But it's something to think about. Maybe if there's some other tech to pair it with that I haven't thought about, could be an option. Okay. Now from here, I've got a couple of like other healing ones. I like this one. This is another one that I'm debating removing the Earthen Vessels for, which would be the community center, right? Once during each player's turn, if they played a supporter card, heal damage, 10 damage from each of their Pokemon. The reason I don't like it is because each player does it. So for example, like this can make you not 2-shot a Dragapult now, because they're going to heal 10. Like, we have just enough damage to where we're dealing 160 for 320. Now, if their Dragapult heals 10, it lives another turn, and that can be the difference between death for you. So it's a cool idea, but I don't think we should. Saguaro is another one that I would really think about. Choose up to 2 of your Pokemon and heal 50 damage from them. So that's kind of cool. 50 damage is pretty significant for Venusaur. For a supporter, it also lets you heal from one of your benched if you've got anyone with damage. So pretty cool as well. I would like to think of a way to incorporate this one. Bianca's Devotion, another one. Heal all damage from one of your Pokemon that has 30 or less remaining. Like, that's kind of insane for Venusaur. The only problem is, like, how often is he going to get to 30 or less? This card, it sounds like it would be more of a dead in hand most games, although it could obviously get you out of clutch situations. I mean, honestly, like, it would be kind of cool to just throw one of them in there, and I think I might. I think, you know what I'm going to do in the demo of this deck, which will be coming out at the end of the week on Friday. I'm going to take out one Earthen Vessel and just throw one in. We're going to see if it somehow comes in clutch for us. Alright, and finally, another one is this one, Picnic Basket, which is another one that's a little bit odd, but maybe okay. Heal 30 damage from each Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. I'm assuming every single Pokemon. Yeah, I thought maybe actives, but no, it doesn't say active. So that's another interesting one that could help Venusaur live longer, but again, kind of double-edged sword in that it's going to help your opponent's Pokemon live longer. It could be a good tech if you know that no matter what, you're going to knock them out next turn and you're going to save your Venusaur. It could be something worth using, but I think probably we'll just not include it. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did have one of the first requests I got was to redo the Venusaur deck when the rotation happened. Honestly, as much as I hate to admit it, the deck still is nowhere near as viable as it was with the old tech. We just lost too many really good cards. The Radiant Serena and the Lady being really big, as well as the Ivysaur was just a really good card that came in clutch for me. So the loss of those, there's not a lot to make up for it right now. But I think this deck can still be at least a fun deck to take to your locals and maybe play online and get some wins with. So we'll really see how it does. I've had a lot of up and down performances with this deck on TCG Live, but overall it is viable. Now, if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can become part of the Hawks Nest, a fearless flock of fabulous folks who love to do what we love. I love making these decks. Excited for Destined Rivals coming soon. I think it'll drop about the time this video drops, as I'm 3 weeks ahead in making videos, so that should be fun. If you're not ready to fly it though, just hit that like button. We'll show up in an algorithm near you in the near future. But until then, see you next time.